All right, welcome back to another edition of Coexist. This is Conversation for Conservation. I am your host, Co Lewis, and I'm very excited about today's show for several reasons. Up front, I've had about, I think I've had about 4 hours of sleep because I have a new kitten who doesn't know that between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. is not fun time. So I'm a little ragged right now. But nonetheless, I'm really excited to be here, and thank you so much for joining me. I've got some really amazing guests today. Their names are Nick Holme of the Zambesia Conservation Alliance and Everett Chinoda of Speak Out for Animals. And I spoke with Nick, we've gone back and forth several times, and we had Zambesia Conservation Alliance on the program not too long ago, a couple of months ago. And I was so impressed with the mission, the goal of what this organization's trying to do in pulling all these great organizations and foundations together in Africa to become more powerful, more impactful by having a unified front and a unified vision and the sharing of information and data. Because, Africa is a large continent and you have many great organizations on the ground doing great work, but a lot of organizations don't know about new discoveries or new ideas or new tactics. People always need information. Africa is dynamic, it's ever changing, situations are ever changing. So the more power, the more information we have, the more power. And I can't think of two better people to have on with me. Nick is part of Zambesia Conservation Alliance, but he's also a third generation Zimbabwean. He was a farmer. He's very involved with that. He was chairman of the farming sector. He's a believer in investing in Africa with Invest Africa, and he is with the Commonwealth Business Council. So Nick brings a whole different set of tools to the world of conservation. And Ever comes in from a judicial side. She is the founder, executive director of Speak Out for Animals. And she's an attorney that is using an amazing thing, a tool and a set of tools to fight wildlife crime, fight the judicial system, making it more stringent for people who don't do the right thing and people who are going to jail and who are involved in poaching and wildlife trafficking. And so I am just really excited to have both of you here. I've got one thing, Miss Sarah, I've got one thing blocking Ever's face right here, and I can't see how to get rid of it. Okay. As we get it. That's what you do with a live podcast and live video. Thank you. All right. So Nick, thank you for being here, and Ever, thank you for being here. One of the things that I'm so glad that Nick suggested you being here, Ever, is because I was really lucky to participate in ZCA, Zambesia Conservation Alliance's first virtual summit, and it was called Conservation Kabunga. And they pulled together stunning guests, people from all walks of conservation and forensics and everything, all in one, 2-hour power hours of information. And, Nick, with a background in Africa and a belief in Africa, is now in the UK working different angles with helping conservation. And Ever was part of the panel, part of the speakers. And I was just enthralled, Ever, with what you were talking about, because you were really in a critical part of the success of conservation. You have ranger teams on the ground. You may get arrests going on, but if you can't get strict fines or jail time for poachers and wildlife traffickers, the arrests mean nothing. They'll go back out and do the same thing. So Nick, let's first talk to you, and then we're going to incorporate the conversation with all of us. So Nick, tell me what's going on right now with ZCA and what you guys are up to, because I know a lot has happened in the past couple of months since we spoke. What's going on right now with you guys?
So, yes, what's happening at the moment? And thank you for having me on here.
Sure.
What's going on at the moment is that the Zambesia Conservation Alliance, as you know, was only formed last year, generally as a response to the COVID pandemic. But it's grown out of all proportion, really, because of what it is. And I always say to people, if it hadn't been established last year, someone else would have done it by now, because what it's doing is absolutely vital. We're increasing the number of outreach partners we've got, and Nsefu was one of those throughout the Zambesia region. We are busy talking to alliance partners in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Mozambique, with a view to trying to get them to work a bit more closely together and work on the fact that there's mining, proposed mining going ahead on either side of the Zambezi River there. We are increasing the number of strategic partners we have, those who we think are going to be of help to the outreach partners that we have. And we're building up, we're working very, very closely with the Royal Foundation on the IWT side of things, and trying to help them establish their Southern African task forces on the financial and transport side of things. In fact, Eva and I both sit on the steering committee for the Southern Africa task forces there. And then obviously one of the main things that we're going to try and concentrate on over the coming weeks, months, and years is the bringing together and sharing of information and intelligence on the whole IWT front. And that's a massive, massive subject. But there is a need, and I'm sure everyone will agree with this, that there is a need for much more joined up information sharing in this whole system, and at the judicial level, at ground level, at international level as well. So yeah, so we're keeping ourselves very busy at the moment.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There are a lot of moving parts, and people don't realize that the wildlife trafficking, the global wildlife trafficking, it's the number 3 largest illegal crime out there. The volume and the statistics are absolutely staggering. It's about I hear anywhere between 23 to 25 billion a year. And you are dealing with very sophisticated crime syndicates on the outer edges, pulling the strings of what's going on in Africa, and they're preying on poverty. And it's unfortunately a very effective tool. Or they'll go in and say, hey, do you need a new road in this area? If so, we want all your animals, but we'll get you a new road. So they are playing dirty pool here. They are playing unfairly, and it is a powerful thing going on. So I'm so glad that everybody is now looking at the whole problem, not just pieces of the problem. And that's the power of Zambesia Conservation Alliance, that you are looking at wildlife trafficking, you're looking at poaching, you're looking at the financial forensics, you're looking in the banks to follow the flow of money, where things are going. Then you can help with organizations on the ground, maybe at the airports, to control the flow and be more in control of the future of their animals by being more stringent on the ground. So yeah, that's the beauty, and that's why I'm such a fan of ZCA, is because this is a concept I've been begging for. If I had time, running a foundation keeps me up at night. So if I had 2 of me, I'd be working on the Zambesia side as well, because I believe so much in what's going on. So thank God you guys are there. And again, any way we can support you, we're all for it. Because having a foundation, you just see things and you're just like, oh, wow, you're like, are we ever going to win this war? Are we ever going to win this war? And when you have people like Ever and Nick and all the people involved behind the scenes, I really believe we've got a chance to get on top of this. So Ever, I am so wowed by you. I was so wowed by your presentation to Conservation Kabanga. And when Nick said, yeah, I think we can get Ever, and I'm like, yes, do it. You're amazing, because you are an attorney. You are behind Speak Out for Animals. So tell me your story. How did you get where you are today? What was your calling to protect the wildlife? Tell us the story of Ever.
So I have always been passionate about geography as a school subject. And when I finished my A level, I passed with flying colors. I had the maximums, the 3 A's. So I wanted to do environmental science at the University of Zimbabwe, but then my parents were like, it's either you're a lawyer or you're a doctor or you're, those common professions. So they didn't understand why I wanted to do environmental science, because I loved geography and I really excelled in geography. I just loved nature and learning about it. And then I went on to do law, but I wasn't really excited about it because I was sent to do law. And when I then graduated, and then afterwards, I got an opportunity to volunteer at Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife in 2012. They didn't have a legal department then. So I worked there for, initially I was supposed to work for 3 months, but there was an impasse that happened where a ranger shot one of the suspected poachers then. And it became a big issue. He got arrested, he was sentenced to jail. And that
so
was
the guy who shot the poacher was the one who got in trouble.
Yes, because there were the manner in which he did it, he didn't do it in good faith. So the prosecutor general, instead of exempting him or indemnifying him, said he was zealous, and he ended up being prosecuted for that. So that was the time I was there volunteering. And then there was an impasse, and all the rangers were like, we're not going to work if we are going to be arrested for killing or
doing your job. Yeah.
Because they will either kill you if you don't kill them, or so that's the time when I was there. So I proposed and said, let me go and train them what the law says, when to use maximum force, when to use reasonable force, their do's and don'ts and stuff like that. So I went throughout the country and trained. Then it was about 1,200 rangers, training them about the law. And also bearing in mind that when I was at law school, there was no wildlife law course. And even right now in Zimbabwe, there's no wildlife law course. We're the ones who are actually introducing it. So that's where the interest became. I mean, that's when the interest began. And from there, as a volunteer, and then trained the rangers. And then after 6 months, I got an opportunity to go to the judiciary side. They said, you were successful for your interview. Do you want to be a magistrate or a prosecutor? I got good advice. I was told, be a prosecutor because you learn so many things and you become more versatile. So I became a prosecutor for 3 years, and I was still prosecuting wildlife cases because I had an interest. And also Parks and Wildlife Authority people will just come and approach me since I had worked there. Then Cecil the Lion case happened in 2015. I was then recalled at Parks and Wildlife Management Authority to say, you have an interest, you have a little bit of an idea, please come and assist us. Then I went and started monitoring Cecil the Lion case. Whilst I was monitoring Cecil the Lion case, I then also got a flyer that Lewis and Clark was offering Masters in Animal Law. So this is a new program. It's the only college that offers that program in the world.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was privileged to be, given the opportunity to come and attend. So I happened to be the first Southern African person, first Zimbabwean in the world to do this degree program. And and then from there at school, instead of writing a dissertation, I opted to start a non-governmental organization because I wanted to go back home and do something practical from the knowledge I learned. So that has been my journey. It has just been one thing leading to the other, and just that organic growth. So at the end of the day, I've had to use my prosecution or my law, as well as the passion for protecting the environment to particularly protect the animals, because that's the area I specialized in.
So to reflect on what you were just talking about, the Cecil the Lion case, that was the most god-awful situation where a dentist, Dr. Walter Palmer, I'll never forget him for the rest of my life, legally killed an iconic animal in Zimbabwe, and such a revered animal. And he was taken out of, from what I heard, he was taken out of the protected area shot with a bow, didn't even die quickly. It wasn't even a quick death. It was just god awful in every single way. And there was so much blowback. I don't know if you guys felt it as much, like, I don't know what the feeling was in Africa, but over here in the US, we lost our minds over that case. And that case really brought to the forefront trophy hunting, the corruption behind a lot of hunting clubs, and, you know, where does the money go? Follow the money, because everybody says, oh, it helps conservation. Well, a lot of times it doesn't. It just lines the pockets of the operators. So that was a watershed moment for wildlife. And here I had no idea that you were involved with that. So that even makes it more fascinating and special that you're on the show, because that was such a big deal over here. Nick, was that a huge deal in England at the time, the Cecil case? Because everybody lost their minds over here.
Yeah, I think the British don't lose their minds. But no, that was a joke. It was big, but I don't think it was as big as it was with you. I think maybe if it had been a British hunter, it would have been different. But no,
yeah,
no, it wasn't as big as it was with you.
It was intense and crazy, and you know, sometimes through ashes and through horrific situations, something good comes out of it. A phoenix comes out of it, like a law program to protect wildlife, you know, stuff like that. You kind of have to keep your sanity. You have to look for the good somewhere in the bad, or it can be such an emotionally draining field to be in, because all you hear are the horror stories and all the bad stuff. And you're wondering, where are the victories? Where are we seeing anything positive and anything good? So quick question for you, Ever. So, Speak Out for Animals. When did you guys start? And tell us about the rapid response program, this program that you put together that you can give attorneys or people involved in cases, say, hey, here's your guidebook to get you a conviction. When did that start? Because that's a genius idea, and I think every country should have that quick, you know, guide. Like, okay, if you've got somebody caught with animal parts or snares, you know, how do you go after them? How do you get a conviction? Where did that all come from? Was this your idea?
Yeah, so Speak Out for Animals was formed in 2017. So we are 4 years old. And the idea towards having the rapid reference guide came from our senior partners, or an organization that we regard as a mentor, called Space for Giants. They're based in Kenya. They have done exactly the same rapid reference guide for Kenya, Botswana, Namibia. They've done it for quite a number of countries. So Zimbabwe was just next in line, and I was fortunate that, as somebody who had interest in the work, they approached me to say, let's work on this project. And we managed to develop the rapid reference guide, and being funded under the DEFRA UK grant. So the idea behind coming up with the rapid reference guide, particularly in Zimbabwe, is that in Zimbabwe we have 10 different pieces of legislation that protect wildlife, and also the prosecutor school knowing about wildlife law. And because of these so many different pieces of instruments, it was important to just make it easy for anyone who is going to be prosecuting these wildlife cases. So we quickly just sat down and extracted the offenses and what they're supposed to prove, what evidence they need, and what sentence is supposed to be given for each and every different offense that can possibly happen in Zimbabwe under wildlife crime. So that is what led to the compilation of the book, and the book is being used in every court. Every single court has that guide, and it has been very helpful. And we've seen even the interest of prosecutors increasing because life has been made easy for them.
Yeah, and I don't know of one in Zambia, and I would love to see if we can get that program in Zambia. And Nick, you'll be interested in this, and you may already know this. You both may, but I didn't know. I had a great podcast, I think maybe within the last month, with Michael Kegwin of Uganda Conservation Foundation. And he has a fascinating story, you know, with his work there. And I didn't realize Uganda set up their own wildlife crime court. That's all they do, is just that court. That's all they do. They don't do traffic fines or you know, land issues. That's all they do. And I thought, that's genius. That's literally genius. Is this being done more in Africa? And I just wasn't aware that they have dedicated courts to wildlife crime.
This is, sorry, Eva, you answer that one.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Uganda has set good precedents in as far as having a wildlife court is concerned. Also pushing for the same agenda to have a wildlife court in 2024 in Zimbabwe. And then I know South Africa also has a wildlife court, I think next to Kruger. I'm not really sure of the location, but they also have a wildlife court next to one of the big parks there. So those are the two countries that I know have wildlife courts, and we are also making efforts to come up with the same in Zimbabwe. And in as far as SOFA is concerned, and the efforts we are putting, we are hoping that by 2024 we'll have this realized. Perhaps it might be sooner with government input and whatnot, but in as far as our work and our projections and our efforts are concerned, we hope by 2024 we'll have that court established.
That's amazing. And Nick, this is something that you might be able to impart with your partners out there in the other countries that you're touching upon, because I think a dedicated court is really effective, because you know this, you're getting the purest sense of the law and the impact of the law by people who only work in this field. They don't handle other types of disputes. This is their wheelhouse, and this is what they focus on. And another thing to share with you guys, because part of the reason I created Coexist was not only to share the message of great people and organizations just doing God's work every single day, and a lot of them are just unsung heroes, and I want people to be aware of these people and what they're doing, because they are changing the world, but they need help. You can't do it alone. It's a very expensive endeavor. It needs a lot of emotional and financial support to be effective out there, because you've got a really big continent to deal with. But here's another thing from that takeaway from that podcast was he works in conjunction with Uganda Conservation Foundation. So that's his foundation, but he works with the wildlife department, the Uganda Wildlife Department, or authority, I should say. And in this area where they have their own jail. So if they're out in the field, they arrest a poacher or a trafficker or whatever, they go to the jail, because like you said with law, you have to make sure every step is absolutely documented. So there's no like, oh, they didn't read me my rights, or, oh, they're looking for loopholes to get out of the system. So they make sure that every single arrest is just a very detailed process thing, and they get them right into the jail, and they can keep an eye on them. So there are no questions about the integrity of the arrest and the integrity of the case. So this might be something for people to think about in their program, and something that I would think about in Zambia, in the sector where we are. We might have a dedicated jail, so we know nobody can say something happened to the person in jail. They weren't slipped any money or any corrupt, you know what I mean? More controlling of the environment leads to better prosecution and to better convictions. And I thought, gosh, that's another great idea. So this might be something to share with the partners out there, because Zambesia Conservation Alliance touches upon different countries and areas. It's basically based on the waterway there, the Zambezi, but this is something that could spread to other countries. So Nick, is this something that Zambesia Conservation Alliance would be like interested in sharing the message on that kind of case?
Yes, it would be. But I think just going back a little bit, every country in the Zambesia region actually needs about 10 ever Chinodas in each country, because it's not just the courts. It's all very well having a physical building that is just focused on wildlife crime, but it's also the training up of the prosecutors and magistrates and judges. It's having the ability to conduct the cases properly, as well as the arrest procedures and possibly the jails. I'd never heard of that, and I know this is being discussed at official levels in a number of countries. Again, Ever and I were on a where Ever was talking on another webinar summit type thing a few weeks ago, and this subject came up. So yes, the physical courts are one thing, but it's the Ever Chinodas of the world who need to get out there and ensure that the prosecution and everything is conducted properly. But yes, it's something that we can and must and will add to the Zambesia Conservation Alliance's list of things to do, and we'll certainly have those conversations. But it is ultimately, I think, Ever, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is ultimately up to the government. So the of the various countries. So those governments need to be willing and financed as well. These things cost money. And like everything in conservation, it costs money, and if it's going to be done properly, it's got to be paid for somehow.
Yeah. So let me ask you: did you have any pushback ever when you were trying to come up with the idea of the wildlife crime? The program, the guide, and getting specific wildlife issues dealt with and laws or anything? Did you get any kind of pushback from the government, or were they like, yeah, we get what you're trying to do, we understand the mission here?
Well, I would say that not really, but I think the issue was being a small organization and also coming from a former government institution. People get too much familiar with you, that when you start doing serious work, they do not really appreciate where you're going and what you intend to do. So initially, that was mostly the pushback of that familiarity, like, we know you. What new thing do you have to say or to give us? Just because you went to America, you think you have new ideas. So it was a little bit of people trying to understand what I'm trying to do. But right now, the relationship with government departments is so good. They now understand, they're so supportive, and especially the National Prosecuting Authority, where I was a prosecutor, they welcomed us so well, to the extent that they were like, you know what, you have been a former prosecutor and now you're back home. So the plan is you should just be able to prosecute some of these cases that give us a headache, because you already know. And so with the National Prosecuting Authority, the officials and the authorities, they welcomed us well. But practically on the ground, when we started, the prosecutors were a bit, who are you? Where are you coming from? Because they felt like we are undermining their work. Because we'll be just assisting and sort of like doing private prosecution. So you know how it is when somebody's doing their job, and then you'll ask them, which charges did you prefer? Which sentence are you going to give? So the magistrate sometimes feel like, are you telling me my job? Or what are you doing?
Easily offended.
It was sort of like the misunderstanding and attitude on the ground, despite the good authority and reception from the superiors. But now when we do the trainings, we always tell them, we actually ask them and say, this is who we are. Tell us what you want us to do. If you don't want us to say anything or research for you or anything, we're fine. We'll just sit and listen. But what we'll not allow is poor administration of justice on the basis that you don't want us to assist. So now the relationship is good. They know we're there to complement their work and not to diminish their work or to challenge their work.
Yeah. And this is something that we discussed, and Nick, I know with the Brown family behind ZCA. This is something that we really impart to the people at NSEFU, is that, we're coming in as guests of the country. We're coming in to help, to support. You can't come in and tell people what to do. You share your ideas with them. Maybe you share an observation, say, hey, what about we try this? Maybe you can get a better result this way. you have to come in as a team player, and because that is the only way you're ever going to get anything done, is by letting them feel like they're part of the success or the vision. I mean, that's really critical. So economic opportunities, education, and enforcement. Those are the 3 E's of NSEFU. So we've got the ranger team, we've got beekeeping and sewing and other opportunities for people, but we also have schools. So we're teaching kids conservation ideas. So that, you're right, you have to come in the right way to achieve the vision and the impact that you want. And that's a true statement right there. So Nick, let me ask, go ahead, please.
Sorry, may I, before you go on to the next question, may I just add one other thing in there, if that's okay with you?
Absolutely.
And that is the other end of the spectrum is prisoner rehabilitation. So we go through the whole process of putting people in jail for poaching, and then they're stuck in jail. Quite often they're disowned by their families, and when they come out 6 years, 9 years later, they've got absolutely nothing. And so their only option is to go back to what they knew best, which was poaching. So I think prisoner rehabilitation, not just in Zimbabwe, but across the Zambezi region, across the whole continent, actually, is a vital component in this. And there needs to be discussions with prisons authorities about starting the rehabilitation process in jail, in prison, teaching people skills, and then actually helping them set themselves up the minute they walk out of those prison walls, because that's it just gets rid of the need they will have to support themselves through poaching. Anyway, sorry,
Oh no, that's a critically important thing, and I'm really glad you brought it up, because I hadn't even really kind of thought about that. Because if you do that, then you're immediately taking away a threat, down the road of a potential poacher. You teach them a job skill, get some education, like you said, set them up for success so they don't have to go that route. And that is a really critically important thing. And anything that you develop with ZCA on that end, we'd love to hear about it. We've had poachers come up to us and turn in their guns saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Can I work in your beekeeping or help you build the school? They want to do something else. And I think prisoner rehab would be a highly effective tool there in fighting wildlife crime from all angles. So that's a really good point, and I appreciate that. And let me ask you, Nick, so in the UK, I know that part of the master plan of ZCA is you can't go too much into it because there's a lot of intel, but there's financial forensics, there's actual watching shipping, there's so many layers to wildlife crime. How is that going overall with you guys? Are you finding the right people to plug into those roles? And I'm sure the data and information that you're getting is pretty staggering.
Yeah, I think overall, through the excellent work that the Royal Foundation's doing with its United for Wildlife and getting banks and transport companies, including some of the huge airlines and the big name banks, is playing a very big part in bringing the private sector together in terms of following the financial flows and the transporting of the actual goods. It's no easy job. It's no easy task, and this is why they're trying to set up the regional task forces so that we can narrow down into the regions. How successful are we being at the moment? We are making gains. We are getting somewhere, but it's not something that's going to happen overnight. We need to get people on board voluntarily as opposed to feeling they have to do it. Banks already have their KYC and following the money for things like drug smuggling, guns, and all sorts of other trafficking. So it's a relatively slow process, but I'm hoping we're going to, over the next few months, going to be able to speed it up as word gets out, as we're talking to people. Generally everyone is on board with the idea. No one we've spoken to thinks it's not worth following the money or following the goods. So, that's absolutely fantastic. It's now a question of just coordinating the efforts in order to really make a big impact, as opposed to, a few little ones. And I don't know, maybe Eva, you want to add anything more to that, but I think that's where we are at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. You said it all. Yeah, that's exactly where we are.
So is there are you right now with your organization, are you working at building different departments that handle like monitoring airports to see trafficking of goods, through import export? Like, are you guys at that level yet? Are you talking to people about that, or is that another governmental department handling that?
No, we're talking to people about that, but really where we are at the moment is we're bringing people on board. So whether it's people in the ports authorities, or whether it's banks in Zimbabwe or Malawi or Angola or Mozambique or wherever it might be, we're bringing people on board so that there's again a Southern African umbrella organization that feeds into the global one. So we're not at the stage where we're operating out of different offices. We're basically at the stage where we're still bringing people on board.
There's I'm not sure if you guys have met Mike Veal of Global Conservation Force, but he's done a lot of work in the area, and he's worked with a lot of different organizations. And he is kind of like a ZCA, but on a ranger level, coming in, supporting the rangers with equipment and training and all that stuff, like the backup, filling out the gaps and teaching people different things to be more effective in the field. And he and I were talking, and I'm blanking if it was Mozambique or Mali. I really can't recall. I think I was so horrified by the story he told me, I just kind of, my eyes went pinwheel, like, what? And we were talking about the rhino crisis and the speed of which an animal in South Africa is killed, crosses the border, and is out on a helicopter within 6 hours. That horn is gone. And he said this operation runs like, it's a business, like it's, Nestle's or something like that. It's that systematic. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing, because there are so many areas that need to be plugged up with enforcement and intel. But when you know that if a rhino's poached in South Africa, it gets through the border and it's out of the country, gone within 6 hours. And it's a kingpin running this town. And what he's done is he has paid off all the officials. He opens up a restaurant to them. So nobody's ever going to not do what he says. Like, oh, what rhino horn? We didn't see anything. Oh, what about that chopper that just flew up? No, don't, this is kind of the stuff we're dealing with. So organizations that can come in and show you other ideas and other ways to tackle, the wildlife crime and just poaching from all angles. It's a pretty staggering thing. Again, I want to emphasize that we're dealing with crime syndicates who are highly sophisticated, highly funded, and they prey on poverty. End of story. And that is a hard tool to, that's a hard weapon to beat, because if somebody's just trying to feed their family and somebody says, hey, I'll give you $20, take out an elephant, and they haven't eaten, guess what? We see the pattern going on. And this is just something that there are so many things that need to be tackled, but at least I feel like the awareness is better. Are you guys finding the awareness of the wildlife crisis better? People are understanding that we really have an issue going on around the world with trafficking and poaching. Are you picking that up from the people you know? Ever, you can start.
Do you want to start, Eva?
Yeah, I think particularly in the judicial sector, when I'm talking about, because I mostly deal with the police, the investigating officers, the prosecutors, the magistrates, and next year the judges. But the manner in which they respond, they are surprised that this is going on. They don't know. So I always make it a point that before I start talking about wildlife trafficking or the offenses and the penalties, I always make it a point for them to understand the value of wildlife. That's my opening. That's the first thing I teach them. The value of wildlife, the intrinsic value and the extrinsic value of wildlife. Then after that, we start talking about, so if this is valuable, this is why people want this, and this is why they are doing this, and this is what we are losing, and stuff like that. Because they were like, what is the big deal with this whole ivory? Where is it going? What's the value? We've never seen the ivory. They were, so when you start talking to them and educating them, you can see that they were just blank.
They're connecting the dots. All of a sudden it's making sense.
Like, okay, somebody was found with a pangolin. So what? It's just a pangolin. So you make them realize that no, it's not just a pangolin. This is what is happening. You show them the videos on YouTube. You give them examples of cases happening in the world. So raising awareness is actually changing the attitude. It's really slow because it's only the people that you'd have talked to that will appreciate. So it's at a slow pace, but it's better. Every time you speak to somebody about it, the awareness increases, but it is at a very slow pace.
Yeah, I agree. And Nick, what are your thoughts?
Well, do you know what? I think there is more awareness, and maybe that's come about as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic as well, has helped raise this awareness. But there are a lot of good people and good organizations out there doing some excellent work. And this goes back to the whole premise behind the setting up of the Zambesia Conservation Alliance, is that we now need to bring this all together so that there's coordination of effort and no duplication of effort as well. And the other thing to remember, it's in our own interests. We're the three of us on this podcast are all, we understand what's needed, but it's in the global interest to stop this illegal wildlife trade, not just because we'll end up losing elephants and rhino and possibly never seeing them again, but we might end up spreading the next pandemic as a result of it. In fact, I was on a webinar yesterday, I think, with a congressman from the States who's just introducing a new law into Congress about stopping the next pandemic, and he was saying, this has much bigger ramifications, not just for the US but also for the rest of the world, in trying to fight the next pandemic. So the answer to your question is yes. I think there is a lot more awareness, but I don't think there's enough joined up thinking, people coming together, and it's a hard one. It's a difficult one because everyone operates in different areas, but it's necessary. It's very necessary.
I mean, yes, we're dealing with a global issue, and all of us are most particular about Africa, but Africa impacts, China, Japan, all that, because of the trade, the direct trade issues going on and the illegal smuggling going on, that Asia is really creating this demand. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And again, speaking of Nick Holme of Zambesia Conservation Alliance, why I was so excited to that Nsefu joined up with you guys as partners is because I was finding that so many other foundations in Zambia, we felt like we were different planets, like nobody was joining with information and data, and I felt like all this waste of energy and resources when if you get a map, a game plan where everybody executes to the best of their ability in the areas that they're really good at, you're going to be far more effective and far more impactful. And that's really the concept of ZCA, is having this, putting all the elements in a funnel and coming out with a pure product that is really effective. It's like a capsule. Everybody takes it and everybody's better because you're getting the information you need, you're getting the support you need, you're getting the financial support you need. It's a great concept, and I'm sure other organizations are going to take notice of it, and hopefully this is going to be applicable across the continent. So Nick, and working in the UK, you're with the Wildlife Foundation. That is it Is it when they have an idea, are they pretty fast to implement programs? Does it take a long time to get things going? You've got a big, well-respected foundation. How quick are they to move on things if they see a good idea?
I would suggest they're pretty quick. For something that is internationally recognized and has the profile it does have, it's able to attract the right people and the right organizations to help it do what it needs to do. And so yes, I would suggest, I mean, it depends what you call quick, but in the whole scheme of things, I would say that they are pretty good. They're pretty proactive, and they are one of the organizations actually leading the way in terms of making stuff happen and getting results. They, like every organization, they need help, just like any other organization does. But that's where we come in. That's where the South American equivalent comes in, or the Asian equivalent comes in, and they're able to bring all this together. So yes, I think they're doing an excellent job, actually.
And with ZCA, a thing that is very admirable, and I love what you guys started, is when you were starting this, I remember you guys saying, we've got something big coming up, we'll let you know what it is. And it turned out to be Ranger Alert. Ranger Alert is this project, and Nick will go into it, that actually focuses on the wildlife rangers and the incredible job they're doing on the ground. It's a very dangerous job. Not the greatest pay. They're putting their lives on the line, and it's just a hard job. So tell us about Ranger Alert and the premise behind it and how it's going and how people can help.
Thank you, Co. Yes. So the Rangers are, an integral part of the whole anti-poaching operations. As you say, their lives are on the line every single day of the year, whether it's through being shot by poachers or trampled by elephants or charged by lions or whatever it might be. Apart from kit and equipment and proper training, they do need to be looked after if anything happens to them. And so the original premise behind Ranger Alert was to create this campaign to raise funds for these rangers with a two-prong attack, so to speak. One is to create memorials to all those rangers who have actually lost their lives in the various parks and game management areas around Zambesia, and help educate the communities as to the importance of the rangers. The other main part of this is actually to provide funding for an operation that is already up and running, run by the Game Rangers Association of Africa, which is effectively providing life insurance for the rangers in the Zambesia region, at least initially in the Zambesia region. It would be lovely if it could go continent-wide. And that's just to try and provide some sort of security for the rangers if they get disabled or if they do, pay the ultimate price, putting their lives, laying down their lives for them and their families. And so we felt this was the most effective use of the funds that we will be raising in the Ranger Alert campaign to create a bit more sense of stability and a safety net for them.
Yeah, and everybody, so people are aware in Africa, poverty is rampant and people are living on the edge financially. I mean, it's a very thin line, between survival and just getting by. And the importance of having funding for this is, like you said, if the breadwinner loses his life in the line of duty, what happens to the family? I mean, usually the mother is taking care of the children. There are no economic opportunities. The kids might be enrolled in school. They might lose that. I mean, the trickle down doesn't trickle down. It just falls off a cliff if the main breadwinner is gone or injured. And this is something that we believe in, and I think it's a really critical part, because you want to not only make sure that the rangers are as safe as they can be in their operations. You want to make sure they feel like they've got support behind them. If something happens, somebody will be there to, that right there is a great recruitment tool, because you might go and say, you know what, I'm going to go in as a ranger. I love wildlife. It's a dangerous job, but the good news is they've got my back. God forbid something happen. That is a great way to bring in more people, recruit more people, and high quality people, because it gives them an opportunity that they might not get elsewhere. So I think that's a very visionary way to go, and I'm quite sure you're going to get a lot of support in that area, because I know in our area, if something happens to a ranger, and it's happened, that family's in trouble. You know, we've had deaths in the parks, and it's tragic. So we try to help out financially best we can, even with teams that we don't even know. We just send money because we know how incredibly difficult and challenging it is for the rest of the family. So if somebody wanted to be part of that and contribute to that, Nick, how would they go about that?
Right. Well, we've partnered up with something called the Commonwealth Youth Orchestra, which has underneath it as a sort of it's an umbrella organization that teaches children around the Commonwealth music and singing, all of that, but it also has a community heritage side to it as well. Mm-hmm. And conservation is one area that it's focusing on. And so we've partnered up with them, and their website, the whole, if people want to get involved, the Zambesia.com website has a page with Rangers Alert on it. So it's Zambesia.com, Rangers Alert. There's a donate button. And we will be ramping up. We've only just done a soft launch. And so over the coming months, we'll be ramping up the publicity behind it. And I'm hoping we're going to get a few big names around it to support it. But if anyone feels like supporting it and spreading the word, then, you know, the whole world is most welcome to do so, because these Rangers do need our support. And, you know, this is going to be an ongoing thing. It's not just a one-off. Their insurance premiums need paying every year, and we would like to increase the number of Rangers that we're able to support. You know, there's thousands of them out there. Yeah. You know, men and women doing a really good job that, you know, we want to be able to support as many as possible. So this will be ongoing.
That's awesome. And if somebody wants to support your organization and learn more, where do they go? What is the website address, and what kind of support are you looking for in particular?
Okay, so our website address is www.speakoutforanimals.org. And we're also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if they want to contact us using under the name Speak Out for Animals. Mm-hmm. And on our website in particular, we also have somewhere where there's a donate button. So if people are willing to support our work, they can just go through the website and donate. I think the most area that we are trying to get support for right now is education of law students. Yeah, we recently got approved with one law school in the country to introduce wildlife law. So this would be the first module in the country where we are trying to catch these prosecutors and magistrates young before they graduate, so that by the time they get to do this work, they are already appreciating the value of wildlife. They know this wildlife crime. They know that they're an essential resource in fighting and combating illegal wildlife trade. So we got the authority, and we're supposed to start training or teaching rather, because these are students. So that's an area where we are really trying to get funds and to get going, because we got the opportunity and we don't want to lose it because we don't have resources.
So are you like trying to get funds together for like scholarships for people to go through the program and get a degree? Okay. So that's a powerful tool right there.
Yes, because what is happening is that because it's a new program, it's not practical to make people pay, because people are still saying, wildlife law, what is that?
Yeah.
And where will we work? And what is there's so many questions that we have to answer. So we propose to the school and say, whoever is interested will come and attend for free. But it's the student will attend for free, but there's cost. there are costs that we'll have to incur. In particular, we've compiled a wildlife law textbook. So it is just raw on the computer. We've gathered the information. No, so now we're at the point where we now need to print the textbooks, and it's a textbook, so it has certain standards and expectations that it has to fall under, and it is just not one textbook for individuals, because the school needs textbook and also the students need textbooks. So those are some of the costs that we need to incur despite them attending the lectures for free.
Well, I'm hoping I win the lotto over here, because then you both are going to be really set up. Anything you need, if I win the lotto, you just call and say, "Co, we need this," because I've got you covered, because I so firmly believe in what you guys are doing. I'm so glad Ever and Nick came together in life, because that's a powerful 1-2 punch for wildlife with ZCA and Speak Out for Animals. I could speak to you guys forever, and there are so many things. And again, for anybody tuning in, because the podcast has just really been building, and it's really amazing that people are really interested in learning about conservation and learning about these different organizations. And the need is so great, but the great news is there are really smart, passionate people behind the scenes trying to change things, long-term change, fundamental change, people like Nick and people like Ever and everybody involved with your organizations. There are people doing this on their own time and on their own dime, trying to change the world. And it's important that we share this information. So anybody, share the podcast so people can learn about what you're doing. And then they learn stuff. Like every time I do a podcast, I get email like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I never heard of that." Like, people want to learn. And when they learn, they're wowed, because they're like you said, Ever, I didn't know that. When you start connecting the dots of the impact of what the death of one animal over there means to somebody over here. I always say, for people in the US, if you want your grandchildren or children to see wildlife, you better do something now, because it's disappearing over there. So what are you going to do now to stop the destruction on the other side? There is a chain of pain, and we have to break these links. We have to break them all up. And there are a lot of aspects and a lot of moving parts dealing with wildlife crime, poaching, the judicial system, awareness. You guys are tackling it from all sides. And I'm honored to know you. I'm so glad you've been on the podcast, because this podcast is going to do really, really well. And I think that the ideas that you come up with, I think the tactics that you guys have come up with, and the vision is spot on. And any way we can help, please let us know. And Ever, I might be calling you, because I might go to the Zambian government and say, "Hey, Ever's got a really great program. You should learn about it. Let's get it started. Let's get it rolling." Because I'm not afraid to talk to anybody over there, And if I say I've got Ever over here, or I've got Nick over here, I feel pretty confident going in with a conversation. So you guys, the very best of luck. Again, please let us know. Give us your websites one more time before we wrap up here, so people know. Nick, go ahead.
Okay, so the Zambesia one is www.zambesia.com. So that's Zambesia, ZAMBESIA.com.
And Ever?
And for Speak Out for Animals, it's www.speakoutforanimals.org.
And if you need to reach me, if you need any information, please email me at COE at NSEFU, that's NSEFU.org, and I'd be happy to impart any information. You guys, thank you so much for your time today, and I can't wait to meet you in person, and thank you for the amazing work that you're doing, and I'm incredibly proud and very wowed with both of you. So have a great day. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and there you have it, another edition of Coexist. This is Conversation for Conservation, and we love to hear from you right here on IQ Podcast. And thank you to Attorney King for supporting this show and being a sponsor of the show. So we're here to save wildlife. We're here to create awareness right here on Coexist. So Nick, be well in the UK, Ever. See you soon. Hopefully, I know you're in Oregon. You'll be
Yeah.
heading back to Africa soon, and I can't wait to meet you in person. And thank you so much.
Most welcome.
Oh, thank you, guys. Have a great day, and thank you so much.
Very much.
Let's coexist. You got it. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.